Hello guys, good morning. Today I want to show you guys how to cut a pencil skirt. Long pencil skirts, the ones that stops at the ankle. Now our basic measurements are: we need the waist measurement, the hip, the skirt length, that is the length where you want the skirt to stop. Then we need hip line, very important. Your waist measurement, hip, skirt length, and hip line. These are the basic measurements we will need for cutting pencil skirt, long pencil skirt. Sorry, dear. So, okay. Then, your waist measurements, like for example, the one I have here, I have waist 32, waist 34, skirt length 38, and hip line 7. Now, hip line 7, the waist and hip measurement you divide by 4. You're dividing by 4 because you fold the fabric into 4. That is why you're dividing by 4. Then when you divide, whatever it gives you, you write it down. Now I divided 32, it gave me 8. 8 plus 2. The 2 inches is your sewing allowance. You can't sew without sewing allowance except on a stretchy fabric. That is where you can sew without a sewing allowance. Then the dart on the waist, there will be a dart on the waist. That is why we are adding this 2 to it. The 2 is your sewing allowance and every other allowances. Alright? Then the hip equally you divide by 4. It gives us 10 plus 2, making it 12. Then our skirt length is 38. 38 is where the skirt will stop. Now, this 1.5 serves as hemming allowance, the folding allowance, that you fold the down of the skirt after sewing. Then the upper part, so you're going to add band. So that is why we are adding this 1.5 our sewing allowance, giving us 39.5. Then the hip line. The hip line is very important. It varies. It's not constant. It depends on where you wear your skirt from, the kind of skirt you're making. Some wear high waist, low waist. It all depends on the kind of skirt you're making. So it's preferable measured. When you measure it from where you wear your skirt, you'll be able to get your hip line. That is the point, the hip point, the buttock point where the arcs popped out more. That is where your hip line is. So our hip line is 7 inches for this skirt. Okay, so these are the measurements. Remember, your waist divided by 4, your hip divided by 4, whatever it gives you, add 2 inches to reach your total it up. Then your skirt length plus 1.5, that is your allowances, making it 31.5. Then your hip line, which is measurable. Then another thing is band. There are bandless. There are bandless skirts. There are some that are not bandless. But if you want to put band on it, you need to consider the band you are putting in. In this, we can decide to go for, let's say, 2 inches band. For this 2 inches, that is the height of the band, 2 inches. Now, if we are to put band of 2 inches to this skirt, it affects the length and the hip line. Alright, if you're not putting band, it does not affect it, but once you're putting band, it does affect it. So you need to consider it here and here. Now, for example, if we are to cut with this, now you add, after cutting, you add sewing, you add your 2 inches band to it. It increases the hip line measurement, shifting it down instead of being where the hip is, where the buttock is. It shifts it down, it makes your skirt not to fit. Then the skirt length, it equally increases the length of your skirt. So you need to adjust it, the measurement. The band will be 2 inches. Now I'll be sewing 1/2 inches to it. You come here, you reduce the measurement by 1 1/2. The remaining half is for the joining of the band. When you attach the band to the skirt, you use 1/2 inches to attach it. So that is why you're taking out 1 1/2, not 2. You can equally take out 1 and leave the you can equally take out 1 or 1 1/2, but you must reduce something. 2 inches is too much. It will change the hip line. So once you take out 1 1/2, it gives you 5 1/2. Alright, as our new hip line. Then on the skirt length, is by choice anyway. You can decide, I still want it that way, or I don't. It's your choice. Then if you decide to, I want this skirt to be accurately 38. No addition, no subtraction. That means you have to minus equally here. 1 1/2. Once you minus it, giving you 38. Now, the band. Once you cut 38 and add this band, you still do your folding, that is your hemming of the skirt at the end of the and once you're finished joining the dress, the folding of the skirt, that is the down part, you need to fold it. Once you fold, you finish cutting and sewing, adding the band increases the length of your skirt. Now, the first thing you need to do is fold into 2. Okay? Use your hip measurement to fold into 2. We have hip 40, waist 32, skirt length 38. So the highest measurement is the hip. You divide by 4, giving you 10 plus 2 for your allowances, sewing allowance, dart allowance, all the allowances. Alright, the minimum is 2, except if you're sewing, the fabric you're using is a stretchy fabric, then you don't need the allowances. But once you're sewing, you need sewing allowance. So we have total of 12 as the highest measurement. So you fold into 2. Alright, you fold using your highest measurement. Now this is folded, I folded into 14. I can leave it that way, or I fold using 12 or 13, whichever one. But your folding must be more than this 12, and it should not be excess, too much. You should not exceed, the difference should not be up to 4 inches. That will waste your fabric if you fold more than, if you fold too much. So your folding should be between the accurate measurement, and you add extra 2 or 3. It's okay. If you fold more, it weighs your fabric. So with this measurement, now our waist is 32 divided by 4 gives us 8. 8 plus 2 equals to 10. Okay, now this is the length of our measurement and this is the width. Okay, right now the waist and hip is the width measurement. Just know that the skirt length is the height, that is the length. So then our hip line, according to the measurement we used on the board, is 7. At the end, you know why we minused 1.5, which is for the band, and it gave us 5.5 as our hip line. So you can either start this way. The beginning is always the waist. Now, how do you determine where the hip will be? That is where the hip line comes in. You can't just determine, you measure. You need to measure the person to be certain of where the hip will be. And how do you do that? The hip line depends on where the person wears skirt from. Some like it low waist, some like it high waist. So you cannot have constant the same. You can't have the same hip line for different skirt type, and you cannot have the same hip line when you have two different weights. When you have two different people wearing skirt from two different places, so you need to know where the person wears skirt from, or you measure it. Measure from where the person wears skirt from. There you get your hip line. So our skirt length is 38. Our hip line is 5.5. So the beginning is the hip, is the waist. So from here you place your tape from the beginning. You get your hip line. All right. This is the hip line. Then you measure down to your skirt length. Our skirt length is 38. Then you get your ruler. Mark the line straight. It needs to be visible. Mark it here. Then you mark the down too. That is where your skirt will go. Stop. Now, these 3 basic measurements here. The beginning is our waist. Here is our waist. Now this is our hip, and the down part is our skirt. Now right at the waist measurement, you measure your waist. The waist is from here. Our measurement is 10. 32 divided by 4, it gives you 8 plus 2, 10. We divide by 4 because we fold into 4 when cutting. So we have 10 here. Then right at the hip line, you measure your hip, which gives us 12. Alright. Now, how do you get the pencil part, the down part? What do you do? At the hip line, we have 12 at the hip line. Now, depending on how pencil you want it to be, you minus 2. The minimum you can minus is 2. That is the minimum. You minus from the hip line to get your pencil part of it, which gives us 10. Okay? So you come here, you measure your 10. Get your long ruler, connect from the waist to the hip line. Alright. Oh, sorry. Connect from the waist to the hip line first. Then from the hip line, you connect it to where the skirt length ends. Now, if here is sharp, you can use your hand to correct it. Now or Y sewing, whichever one you prefer. But just know we don't have our hips, they are not this sharp. You don't have K effect when it comes to hip. We call it K effect, you know, this way. When you sew it this way, there's no hip like this, you know, you have to curve it out to give it the normal hip we usually have. Everybody, nobody's hip is this sharp. All right, so looking at it right now, at this down parts, look at it very well. We measured 10. All right, from here to here gave us 10. We minus 2 from the hip measurement, we got 12, we minus 2 and marked 10. Now, if you're not okay, if this pencil part of it is not pencil enough for you, maybe you want it more pencil, you can take out 3 from the hip line. You can take out 4, but mind you, as you're taking out 3 or 4, remember there is sewing allowance. Here too requires sewing allowance. All right, so we took out 2 and we have 10 here. By the time we finish sewing and everything, it will come down more. So I advise remove 2 first while shaping it. After sewing and you're shaping it, you can go in more if you desire. All right, so we measured 10 here and that gave us our pencil part of the measurement. So this is how the pencil skirt will look like. Now this is the front. All right, what you do is cut through. Once you cut through, then you place it and get. Now the next thing is to cut. Okay, so watch me. You follow the line where you marked. And you cut. So you cut it the front first, the front pattern first. Now the front will serve as a pattern for the back. The difference between the back and the front is the zip allowance. The zip is at the back. So all you need to do is use the front, place it on the fabric, then mark out your zip allowance down. For example, if your zip allowance can be 1.5, 2 inches, depends. But in this case, I'm going for 1.5. Alright? So you mark it straight down to the skirt length. You already know where your skirt length is, so you mark it down, use your ruler and connect your rule to connect it down to where you want it. Connect it to where you want. Right? It's very, very important, right? To the end of okay guys, this is a zip allowance of 1.5 inches. So all I need to do is place it through. Start from where the zip allowance ends and place it to the end. Alright, then you cut from here to this part. Take the front pattern that you have cut, you have marked out, place it on the fabric. But before you do that, mark out your zip allowance. Here I marked zip allowance 1.5 from the beginning to the skirt length, where the skirt ends. Then you place it, the front pattern, and mark out. Alright, place it and mark it out. Then you cut from here. You don't need to start marking it from the beginning again. Alright, so this is how it will look once you're done hey guys, check it out. This is the result you get. This is the zip allowance. Alright, this is the front pattern, so watch it through. This skirt length ends here, and this is where the zip allowance stops. So thank you.